Hello again! Welcome again to my channel where I'm going to be reviewing another Transformers Age of Extinction Constructor bots Dinobot. So, subject of today's review is this chap, Slug. But before we get on to him, I want to recap on my Grimlock review. There's something on that I feel I forgot to mention, and I just wanted to bring it up on this one, and that's this. Behold, Grimlock in the nude, with no clothes on. Basically, I just want to chat a little bit about the new skeleton that these guys sport. Now, I haven't got any of the other Constructor bots. These are my first, and as I understand from watching other people's reviews, that they've made this is a new skeleton stroke chassis for these guys. So I just wanted to give us a closer look at them, and just mention a few things. They are virtually all ball joints. All the main joints, rubberized ball joints. There's these octagonal clips all over for clipping on body parts, armour pieces. Apparently the previous Constructor bot chassis had a waist joint. This does not have a waist joint. It's a solid torso piece. The reason being the gimmick gear. Because it's right about where the waist pivot should be, so that's the reason why these things don't have a waist swivel. But yeah, this is the new frame that these things now carry. One thing about the ones that I've got so far is that all the armour pieces that clip onto this are unique to each character. This is the only sort of these are the only common components between them. It's basically the skeleton and the gimmick wheel, but all the others, everything else, the feet, the armour pieces, breastplate, head, dino kibble, it's all part of the makeup of these new characters. So like I said, it's a new design for a new line of toys. So there are planned the other main Dinobots, Scorn and Slash, will also have this chassis at their heart, again with different dino bits bolted on, clipped on to form the new characters. So I just wanted to do a quick resume on what's at the heart of these things. So on to the main review, and it's this chap, Slug, as I'm going to call him. Before I get into this guy, I want to have a little chat about the name change. Now, I'm old enough to have been around when G1 was new. I used to have a few Transformer toys when I was a kid, and mostly I used to collect the G1 comics. I had issue 1 up to, and I collected it up to about issue 298, just shy of issue 300. And obviously the UK Marvel comics were, to me, my Transformers Bible. I wasn't a fan of the cartoon series, the movie being the exception, but the cartoon series, because the plots differed between the comics and the comics and the cartoon series. I bought the comic on a weekly basis, and that was what Transformers was about. And like so many other people, I was a massive fan of the Dinobots. Followed them right from their origins, right through to till I stopped getting the comic. There were particular stories where the Dinobots featured quite heavily, which I was are some of my favourite stories. Fortunately, I don't have those comics anymore. they went missing, but I'll probably go into that in greater detail when I do a blog about my Transformer history. Anyway, the Triceratops was always called Slag. Now, we've been given this story. The reason why they've changed his name to Slug is because slag is a dirty word. I suppose in this country it is a derogatory term, often used to describe, you know, whores and hookers and women of ill repute. But it can also be used as a term to refer to, you know, molten metal byproducts. You know, it's, and also in the comics and to some extent in the cartoon series of various, you know, decades, the term slag or slagging or slagged often keeps cropping up and gets used freely. So why suddenly change it? And to what? To slug? I mean, what is a slug? It's a slimy snail without a shell. And it can also be referred to a slug as a bullet. You know, if you shoot someone with a slug, you know, it can also be referred to as a bullet. But I'm just not hugely, you know, I'm not a huge fan of this name change for this character. I mean, he will always be Slag to me, but for this review, I'm going to refer to him as Slag. I'm going to slur his name because that's just the way I feel. Anyway, on to this dude. Right, and here he is in Dino mode. I thought I'd start on Dino mode because, in my opinion, this guy is riddled with problems, both in Dino and in Robo mode. So let's get the Dino mode out of the way first. And the first problem I have with him is his stance. I mean, look at this. How ridiculous is that? I mean, this is how you're supposed to pose him, according to the promotional pictures and, you know, the instructions manual. You're supposed to have his legs virtually bolt straight down at a slight angle, and that's how he's supposed to be. Is that really a dinosaur? I mean, look at all this. Look at all this space under here. You know, he looks like a prehistoric reptilian pond skater. You know, he looks ridiculous. I mean, you know, he looks like he's on stilts. He's crap. No, I'm sorry. But fortunately, being a constructor bot, a construction kit where you can take bits off and put bits back on, you can actually modify his stance to make him look a bit more realistic. This is how I do it. Front legs, right? Bend them in an L shape. And these bloody ball joints keep popping out. Slightly forwards. And just making sure to flatten the feet. And then that's got his front legs done. Now, unfortunately, got a bit of a problem with his back legs because they're so poorly designed for being, you know, legs on a quadruped rather than legs on a biped. You can't put them into the, you know, the natural sort of bent leg, sort of chicken leg pose, which would look so suitable. They just don't work. You try to bend them where they won't go and they just pop off. And you can't have him like that because he looks ridiculous. So there is a way to fix this, and this is what I do. First of all, you pull the legs right off, making a tadpole. Now the legs, take these top bits off because we don't need those. You then refit the legs back on the sockets, angle them backwards, and put the paws facing flattened and facing forwards, obviously. get him positioned. Sorry about this. And there we have him. Now, I, for one, think this looks a lot better because he's much more squat, much more, Dino-like. Front paws, are in this L shape, and the back paws are going, the back legs are going backwards. And he sits lower, looks more, looks more like a dino rather than, a pond skater. So that's my thing for doing that. The only drawback is if you want to convert him back into a rowboat, you've got to put the bits back on. So what else is there to say about him? Yeah. I'm not too happy about these things. These fastidial tusks that stick off his lower jaw. Now I know this is all part of the Michael Bay aesthetic for these guys. In Dino mode they've got all these superfluous spikes and teeth and things sticking out of them to make them look really sort of spiky, and it's all part of his aesthetic. And is it really necessary? I mean, real dinos weren't like that. But I guess it is necessary. Also, his gimmick, right? You got the gear, turn it, and his frill spins round. Now, that's kind of cool. And I'm kind of hoping that when the movie comes out, that Slug's frill in the film actually does this. It actually can spin his, frill round like a saw blade and cut Decepticons to pieces. That might be a lot of fun. Apart from that, his whole back and his head assembly is all one big immovable chunk. Can't do anything with it apart from, move his jaw. And that's all there is to say about his Dino mode. After you've modified the legs, it kind of looks like a dinosaur, but he isn't just a plastic dinosaur. He's also a robot in disguise, so let's transform. Of course, I've got to put the bloody legs back on, haven't I? What a nuisance. Right, a few twists and turns later, we get Slug in his Dino mode. I've said it again, haven't I? In his Robo mode. Okay, what's to say about him? Again, he's got issues, right? Trying to straighten him out a bit. Biggest, chiefly of which is his Dino stroke gimmick kibble backpack thing. It's got these pivoting rods which are attached to his shoulders, and the whole thing does that. Look at it. It makes him back heavy, so you have to sort of, when he's stood up, you have to angle his body forward so he doesn't fall backwards. Again, it can't go any flusher against the back of the head. The bottom of it are actually touching the bottom of his top of his legs. So if he was walking around, he'd be ever knocking into this. So that's that. Another thing about him, unlike the other two, he doesn't come with any armour pieces for his forearms. He just has red skeleton with his hands. I don't know why that is. My guess is because his hands are quite large, they make up the purple portion of his arms quite nicely, and there's no need to put any extra bits on here because it might mean he'd have too much purple on. Maybe that's my imagining, or maybe they just forgot to put some on him. Another thing I'm not really keen on is these fists. They're dinosaur paws that double up as fists. Now, some might say that's quite a clever use of the mould, but I think, you know, I know for a toy that's simple as this, you know, it's a waste of time, you know, designing anything complicated or sophisticated for it. I'm just not that keen on them. And compared to Strafe, he's got quite chunky fist-me-doos for his paws, and so yeah, that's that. And one final thing. What the hell is that? What is it? I know it's his weapon. It's his tail. You unclip it, you stick it in his hand, it becomes his weapon. Now, compared to the other two, this is pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. It's half the size of Grimlock's massive great tail sword, and even Strafe's tail sword is like at least that much longer. What is it supposed to be? It's not a sword. The way he holds it, is it a back scratcher? It's kind of like, you know, my baby's first batleth. You know, it's really pathetic, and surely they could have given him a better weapon than this. So there we go. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention: the pointy shoes. Yeah, I know it's all part of the Michael Bay aesthetic, this medieval aesthetic that these guys have got, but why do you have to give them winkle pickers? You know, sort of clown shoes. Why? You know, it doesn't help with their stability when they're standing up. Anyway, Slug, or should I say Slug, he's not that great, to be honest. I think out of the three, he's by far the worst. He's got the most things wrong with him, both in Robo and Dino mode. So, yeah. Unless you want to get the set, I wouldn't recommend picking this guy up. Not really. There is one other trick that this guy does, which I've found. You can do this. Let's turn the head round for this. Triceratops head man. Or should I say, if he was painted bright blue, he looked like Spike from the 1997 cartoon series Extreme Dinosaurs. So yeah, there we have it. Slug. You know, take him or leave him. I personally would rather leave him. Anyway, goodbye.